Ladies and gentlemen of the listening audience, welcome back to another special episode of the WTTA Guns and Mental Health Podcast. And before we get started, I want to tell anyone that enjoys the show, please share it, hit that like and subscribe button. And today I'm joined by my co-host, Jay. It's always good to see your face, right? We love it when you come through. It's not
Absolutely.
that often, but you do come through the show every once in a while. Jay Hood, how are you doing?
Good, Mike. I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I take the reins and just make a remarkably warm introduction to our special guest today. Ladies and gentlemen, again, please, I want to reiterate, like, share, subscribe, and please don't forget to comment as I stalk our comment section so regularly. Today, we are joined by a remarkably talented mental health advocate. And this is Roy Wood Jr., ladies and gentlemen, a powerhouse of comedy, of social commentary. He's an Emmy-nominated comedian from Birmingham, Alabama, and he launched his career in comedy back at Florida A&M University, where he rose to prominence as a correspondent on Central's The Daily Show. Forbes has declared him as one of comedy's best journalists, and Entertainment Weekly has praised his charismatic crankiness because beyond his comedic prowess, he is passionate about mental health, and he uses his platform to discuss personal challenges and to promote understanding. So whether it's his stand-up specials to his documentary work, Roy has consistently demonstrated a unique ability to blend both humor and a profound social insight. And so he's a multi-talented performer who's graced the stages of USO tours to late night shows. He represents comedy that not only entertains, but also enlightens. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Roy Wood Jr., where he's a writer and star of Lonely Flowers, which I believe is releasing next year, executive producer of Roy Wood Jr., father figure, and Roy Wood Jr., No One Loves You, and Imperfect Messenger. And he's now the writer and the host of Have I Got News for You on the CNN network. So again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Roy Wood Jr. How you doing, Roy? Thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all for having me, man. I appreciate y'all for having me in the mix.
Absolute. So to jump right in, and I don't know if I shared this with you when we spoke earlier this year, but I had first really learned of your work back with Buck Wilds or Wild Bucks. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, Buck Wild. No, Buck Wild. That was the dude's name, the DJ when I was doing
Yeah,
morning radio in Birmingham.
yeah.
Prank phone calls and all
Great
that.
phone
Yeah,
call. So it was about 2002. Was it about 2002?
yeah.
Um,
01, 02. That's when I started. Yeah.
yeah, man.
Prank phone calls, though, to where you're at now. Do you ever look back and go, damn?
It's been a life. It's been a life. It definitely been blessed. I
Well, to
like,
that point,
wow. I never thought it would get to this.
let me ask you, how have you learned or managed to kind of navigate using humor to address sensitive topics like mental health and firearms and so many other kind of taboo subject matters that come across the writer's desk?
I mean, for me, it's just about figuring out. All right, you don't have to make a joke on the pain, but you can figure out a joke that lives adjacent to the pain. Like you can have a joke that is a collective hug for everybody, right? Where it's like, all right, here's something we are all going through together, and I will make a joke about that. Or you can make a joke about laws that should be getting made or aren't getting made. You know, it's like at the day when I was at the Daily Show, it was essentially when we were doing a field piece. You're either locked in on the causation of the issue, whose fault is it? Like, how did this happen? How did we get here? Or you focus on how do we get out of this? And somewhere in those two realms, there's going to be a joke or two that you could probably get away with. Okay.
Yeah, on that note, I want to talk about something that doing the research and I've watched you for a long time, but I kind of wanted to see some of obviously this is the Guns and Mental Health podcast, right? And you actually went to a pro-gun rally when the March for Our Lives rally was going on. And it was some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. Is there's somebody who can make fun of the 2A culture, and I'm part of that culture. It's me, right? So going there and kind of standing around. First of all, were you the first Black person in Montana?
No, here's the irony. The mayor of Helena, Montana is an African immigrant named Wilmot Collins. I don't know if he's still sitting mayor now. There's been an election since I covered him, but there's some black folks up there. There's black people up that way. We went to essentially, it was a pro gun rally where guns were not allowed. And so the question was, well, if guns are so safe, why are you not allowing them here at the pro-gun rally? And it's a simple question. And that was just me being silly. I wasn't trying to start no mess with nobody. Got a little awkward near the end of the day, though. They had a portion that I didn't know that they have at rallies where you essentially they had like, I don't want to call it open mic, but Buddy basically said, "Does anybody else want to come up here and say something?" And I was like, "Fuck it, yeah, gotta go up there and say something." So we ended up going. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I basically got the people like, "We love guns, yeah. They can't take our guns, yeah. I always got my gun on me, yeah, except for right now because they're not allowed here, right?" And then nobody would say yeah. So that's just, I don't know. What we were trying to accomplish with that bit was the idea that if you're pro gun, that's fine. We're not hating on that, but don't act like gun safety or mental illness is not an issue. The fact that you have this rule in place on this day says that. So let's start the conversation there and figure out where the middle is. And yeah, a lot of people wasn't feeling that.
Yeah, I was going to say one of my biggest questions about it, and I said this to Jay last night when we were talking on the phone. I was like, because I saw the short clip of you actually speaking, right? And I'm like, I wonder if the rest of that speech or whatever he was going to say went well, because as soon as you hit that you hit him with the irony, here we are at a pro-gun rally and nobody's carrying a gun.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, oh my God, like that, where does he go from here? But did they, I mean, you were accepted, right? You got up there, you didn't get booed off. It wasn't like the Apollo or anything like that. Like they didn't say like, get him out of here.
Yeah, it was awkward at best. I definitely did not leave feeling as welcome as I did when I arrived. And you also have to remember, this is when we shot this. This is 20, I don't know, man, 2018, 2019, maybe. So it's peak don't trust the media. So the fact that you're showing up with a camera, you get watched more. I've always had this joke where if you want to scare liberals, show up with a gun. You want to scare conservatives, show up with a camera. Because wherever you're pointing, either one of those, you're the least trusted person in the room. So the idea as a member of the media being at an event like that, no, it was already suspect. And then my antics kind of made it where we needed to get the fuck out of there. And that's what we did.
Did you stay an additional night or did you get straight to the airport?
No, man, I leave, bro. I don't like when I'm in weird places, I don't spend the night there. But but that has nothing to do with politics. That's old protocols from stand-up comedy.
Ooh,
You
talk
do
about
comedy in a lot of weird places and sundown towns and shit, and your regular name is on the room. I'm not staying in that room that the booker booked for me. You might have a key to this bitch. I'm gone.
That's real.
I'm just not like, you don't know who recognizes you. Like journalism and comedy and whatever it is I do, it's not the same as being an actor where someone, you either love or you hate the TV show I'm on versus you love or you really hate the ideologies that you believe I'm pushing. And I don't know whether or not you're stable enough to be around. I don't trust a front desk clerk. I'm just not going to stay here. So we'll work in one city, and the Daily Show producers, they're fine. They can stay wherever. We usually hire local crews, so they're not having to, deal with these same hurdles. But man, when it's time to go, I'm gone. I'm staying the next town over. Or if the last flight out is 7, I'll just fly to the connecting city. In this case, with Montana, it was Salt Lake. So I stayed in Salt Lake. We shot all day. 5 p.m. I'm gone. So now if we have to be there, 1 or 2 days in a row, then of course you got no choice but to stay in town. But it's if I cannot be there, I don't want to be there. Same thing in Boise, Idaho, when we went to talk with we did a piece with Ammon Bundy, and I interviewed him when he was running for governor of Idaho. I'm not staying in Idaho overnight if I don't have to. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
How do you, so obviously politically divided in this country more so than ever. I think all three of us on this this podcast right now really appreciate comedy. I can take a laugh at when I say my people, right? I come from the firearms industry. You show up to an event like this, and it seems like the Daily Show like to send you into places where you can mix it up, right? And you're probably quick. You know, it's like that's not the issue. But as you're walking through there, and how do you identify yourself, or do you have to have a cover at first? Because there's some people that would be like, The Daily Show, I'm not talking to The Daily Show. Or do you find that most people, you put a camera in front of their face and they're like, let me go?
It depends. The trust, a lot of it is rooted in what the topic is, where we are, and what the general vibe is of the town at that time. There's a reason why Jordan Klepper settled into the role of being the guy to go and talk to Trump supporters. And a lot of that is because he's a white man. Klepper's amazing at what he does. Amazing at what he does. But what we started noticing also was people would have a little bit more comfort with him than me. I would never be able to do what Jordan Klepper does on the campaign trail. And the show identified that very early during Trump's first term. And that kind of it gravitated over to being his thing. I think at the end of the day, no matter who you're talking to, if you show them a level of respect and trust up front, you're probably going to be able to have a conversation with them. I've never pointed a camera at someone and not told them I was with the Daily Show or I'm with Comedy Central. Might be the most you can do, you know. And there's also, from a legal standpoint, I can't lie. I can't say I'm a documentarian and then you flip on the TV and you're on fucking cable that night. That's illegal. So, you know, I try to just be open and honest about giving people a place to say their piece and give their opinion. How the public reacts to it, that's not my fault, man. It's not my fault if people laugh, but I'm going to ask you questions about your opinion because it's your opinion and that's what you believe. So let's get to the bottom of it. And the more you try to dig and get to the bottom of stuff, that's when shit starts getting weird and things don't align. And that's where the comedy starts to come out, because a lot of the time you're dealing with people who have not thought out their position thoroughly enough to answer the questions that you're going to pose.
I love that.
Yeah, I see that. I see that in both. You know, obviously, I'm a huge Sacha Baron Cohen fan. You know, I'd say the right has their own people that can point out hypocrisy and do it in a comedic manner. I love it. I don't want to see. Who wants to see the person who comes off completely rational or like, oh, you could talk to this guy? That's not gonna make people tune in, and it's not gonna make people laugh. So, you know, it's like when you were talking to the guy about, I think he said something about like everyone should be armed, and then he's like, just flows right into clear backpacks. He's like, we need clear backpacks so we can identify who's armed. And I'm like, I thought you said everyone should be armed. But it's like that, mixing that up.
I don't know if it made it into the edit, but there was also a guy who was talking about how he should have his First Amendment right should extend to also owning armored vehicles. I should be able to buy a tank if I want to buy a tank.
It did.
That made it.
Okay. Yeah. I remember that dude very well because he was not joking.
He meant that.
And so the idea that, oh, that's comedy. How did you get him to trick him? Nothing.
He woke up.
He said how he felt. And then he just said how he felt.
He woke up feeling that.
What kind of gas mileage do you think you're getting in a tank? H2 Hummer costs $150 on a fill up, bro. What do you think a government issued Bradley armored personnel carrier popping off 50 cal rounds at people?
You need 4 people to operate the damn thing properly.
Oh man, what are you doing? Shut your mouth. So like that's the fun conversations.
Love it. Well, riddle me this, Roy. As we look at the firearms industry and we look at the market segment of growth, a lot of Black people are becoming firearms owners. A lot of Black people are positioning themselves to acknowledge and honor their Second Amendment right. And similarly to you in Montana, in Wyoming and in Idaho and kind of these smaller segments, I often feel similar when I walk into some of these rooms with Walk the Talk America, where I'm I'm a chocolate chip in a glass of milk sometimes. Talk to me about your perspective of Black culture creating space to now become gun owners, and what do you think some of those ideologies may stem from or and consist of?
Wait, say that last part one more time.
What do you think the ideologies or the motivations are becoming as it relates to Black folks in America acknowledging and exercising their Second Amendment right? Just by way of the data, the numbers say that they're part of a growing number of consumers, and firearm ownership throughout the Black community is becoming more and more prominent, more and more important. What do you attribute that to?
I think one part of it is Black wealth and that there's a better, more stable Black middle class. If we're talking about legal gun ownership, that's still a luxury purchase in a sense. It ain't the same as buying a Mercedes, but a decent gun gonna cost you about the same as a flat screen TV if you're getting something that's of worth. So, I think you have people that are also more concerned about having things to protect. That's the other that's the other reason to get a gun, is that you feel like you got some shit that you don't want nobody else to come and try and take. And you also feel less safe in this world, which I think is an inherent part of being Black, as far as I'm concerned. And so I think that there's a large part of Black America that I think we try to act like Black folks don't have the same concerns as other Americans. I want to move through this world and not be bothered and not have nobody talking crazy to me. The issue becomes, once they catch you with a gun, how are they treating you? And I think that's the bigger issue. I know a lot of people who don't carry a gun because they know the moment the cop know you got a gun on them, the traffic stop is going to change. The energy changes. Now you're getting your whole car searched, like even if you legal with it. So, it's sometimes, it's a tool for protection, but a gun can also be a catalyst for harassment, for Black Americans.
That's super.
Yeah, you grew up in Alabama, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you probably were exposed to, I mean, because I grew up in cities, growing up in Jersey and California, the places where I grew up, there weren't hunters. There wasn't things like that. Like you didn't see kids driving around in a pickup truck that had firearms in the back, which is, I caught the end of that when I was a kid and moved to Washington. But were you exposed to firearms in a healthy manner as a kid? Just being in the South, I think like there's a lot of hunters and things like that. Did we lose you?
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Most of the guns I grew up around were illegal, if that makes sense.
Same here.
Like, you're asking me this question, I'm actively going through my catalog of times I was in the same room with a gun and whether or not that gun was legally owned, and it's no. I had my mom had a 22. She got right. We grew up. I lived in Memphis till the second grade, and then we moved to Birmingham. My mom got robbed. It may have been kindergarten or first grade. She got robbed at an ATM in Memphis. And after that, she had a 22 on her for a minute. And I only know this because I found her 22. And my mom had her gun. She had her gun stashed in such a way where gun and ammo were never together in the same place or whatever. Like one was upstairs, the other was downstairs. And I knew she had a 22, but I never knew where the bullets were. And I was a latchkey kid, and I was always home alone. And I remember finding the bullets one day downstairs. I found the clip. And the next day, the bullets in the gun were gone. And years later, I'm talking like graduated high school years later, I finally asked my mom about that gun. And she said, yeah, I came home and I could tell that my coffee mug had been rotated. So you were touching my shit. And you were probably playing with those bullets. So I sold the gun because I didn't want you to shoot yourself in the head because I feel like you're stupid enough to shoot yourself in the head. And so that was the only legal gun I remember. And then everything else was just, street stuff. You go to the park and, you go to the park to play basketball. You see some dude had a pistol on him. He'd put it over by the side or have somebody hold it while they hoop. That was not uncommon. It wasn't a shock. It wasn't like, oh my God, a gun. If anything, hunting rifles were the thing that would like make you stop. In the hood, you was used to seeing a pistol, but when you see somebody with a long barrel, you're like, where you going with that?
Who invited you?
Yeah, but no, I was in high school ROTC. We did paint gun courses. I was on rifle team, so I learned every form of gun safety there was, drill team and all of that. And even then, we were shooting air rifle, pellets or whatever. It was like a 223 little itty bitty ass things, but you treated it like live ammunition. So no, I didn't grow up around a lot of guns. I knew people who got shot. I knew people who was on the receiving end of a gun, but no, not too often. I had a manager. Well, I'm old enough now. I can say I had a coworker at Baskin Robbins where I worked as a teenager. He had a gun, but he was also doing the cash drops at the end of the night. So he made it perfectly clear, and he would do the this man would do the cash drops with the gun out in his hand, just loose, just just all out, just got the gun. He'd had a gun and just be working the ATM buttons.
A real deterrent right there.
Right.
Look
He's
over his
letting it be
shoulder.
known.
Come on over. You do it if you want. Bring your butt on over.
Shoot over some ice cream. Well, to that point, let me think through other segments that I've seen of yours and what I've learned in my maturity of comedy, where it's a medium, right? It's a channel where you have a captive audience, which is typically someone capable of intentional or unfiltered thought. How do you believe humor can be used to promote different subject matters? For instance, in this case, we're talking about responsible gun ownership, but I've seen bits of yours where you're talking about family dynamics, and you're kind of calling out that segment of how the mother may conduct herself in the household versus the father, or how the family may perceive either parent based on how the child is performing and how the child is kind of reacting to life. So very specific to the subject matter of gun ownership and responsible gun ownership. How do you think humor plays a role in kind of piercing the veil, so to speak?
I think that when done properly, humor can be an entry point to a number of topics. Most recently you have Jamie Foxx with a Netflix special, and half that special is him telling the story about being in a coma and learning how to walk again, having a stroke. Any tragedies, any traumas that you've been through, I think once you understand that most everybody has had some version of a couple bad days growing up, then once you understand that and you're able to use that as a point for relation, then I can bring you into my world. I can tell you, yeah, my mom did this, and this, and my dad was over here doing this, and this, and here's how it affected me. And if you keep a lot of it, if you notice for a lot of those topics that you just talked about, when I'm talking about my comedy on stage, I try to talk a little bit about the world, but I try to bring it back to me and my own connection with the topic or the pain or the issue, so that you treat it more voyeuristic and observing, what's going on, instead of accusing and telling, here's what's wrong with y'all. Well, if I just tell you what I'm going through, you're going to find the pieces that relate to you and then use that to inform how to better yourself, maybe. To me, that's better than me becoming a preacher.
Yeah, I want to switch gears just a little bit because I want to talk about your mental health advocacy. A couple of videos I came by, you were very open about talking about mental health and fielding questions about that. And I think mental health is a topic sort of similar like guns, where there's a stigma cast on it. A lot of people don't like talking about mental health. We're getting better as a society, but how did you, I guess it's not find the courage, because I wouldn't say, maybe it could be for some people, but like, how did you get into that space where you wanted to openly talk about mental health?
I don't know. I just don't really see the big deal about it. Like, it's like talking about your blood sugar, your heart, or it's your health. So hey, man, get as Marshawn Lynch once said, get your mental straight, make sure your chicken straight, get your mind and your money right. Like, the idea of, like, even something as simple as going, oh, I go to therapy. Well, okay, well, therapy used to be seen as the thing to fix people who were broken or on the fringes of society in terms of mental stability. And now everybody's willing to be open and acknowledge, yeah, I have a lot of stressful days, and it helps to get some of that out of my system talking to a stranger in exchange for money. I think the issue with mental health now is that mental health advocates, a lot of people talk about just go to therapy like it's a simple and easy thing to do. All of them therapists got gobbled up during COVID. And then on top of that, healthcare started getting dropped, and people don't necessarily have the coverage that will even allow them to even seek out some level of help. So I think if you talk about something enough, you normalize it to a place where people can try to work on it themselves, or just take a minute and go take a couple online quizzes and tests just to see where you're at if you can't afford a therapist. So I think just even acknowledging what you're feeling and what you're going through, it's easier if you've seen someone else already do it. And to me, I'm happy to talk about it because I don't really care what you think of me. It's not a thing that matters, like it's, man, I'd have never told nobody all of that. Okay, well, that's you. I'm writing a whole ass book about the lessons I learned from men other than my father in my life. My dad died when I was 16. So I didn't get the luxury of getting every lesson from him. So there's a trauma that comes with that. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that and then talk about how those things benefited me in XYZ way. And that to me is it's more fun than doing jokes about how expensive gas is. It's more fun.
Let me on that note ask, right, because we've got a tragedy that took place yesterday where there was another unnecessary public display of firearm ignorance and mental unwellness. And then we flash back a few weeks where, to your point around mental wellness and healthcare, there was this cross wiring of those two kind of meeting in apex where a gentleman harmed and injured an executive in the healthcare space. How do you balance being funny with being respectful when discussing serious and or sensitive and taboo topics? Because I'd imagine you've got this I don't really give a fuck, and you kind of have to marry that with some, responsibility. So how do you kind of walk that line that you try not to allow to be a tightrope?
Yeah, but y'all talking about lying a tightrope. The public sets that, not us. Y'all the ones decided when we crossed the line. We was just trying to be funny. So it's not my fault. Like, I was just trying to make a joke. Now, you can say the joke is insensitive. That's your opinion, and that's fine. But it doesn't mean that that the act was deliberate inherently. And I think that's the thing, is that because someone crossed the line, we also assume there to be a reckless intent in line stepping. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that that's the case. There's some people that don't think that murder's funny. So you're not going to get a laugh from them ever on a CEO of a healthcare company getting murdered and all of the other CEOs of other companies increasing their security. That's just never going to be funny to them. But then I'll get on stage and I'll also say, this is probably the first time in America where no one wants to be promoted to CEO. That makes me laugh. I want to stay COO. Matter of fact, put me back down there in the cubicles where it's safe.
Account manager.
That's it. And so to me, that's funny, account manager. To me, that's a joke that is about the other people in the company. It ain't about the dead guy. That dude just got murdered. Who want to be CEO now? Somebody got to replace him. And if you notice, United Healthcare has not announced his replacement yet at all. Ain't said a word, because no one wants to be a CEO anymore. That to me is funny. And that's the direction I would go. Now, it also could be an issue of time, because that's a joke that we're now, I think, about a week and a half removed from that murder. And then there's people that are also praising the murderer. And so, there's a lot of different angles you can take on this. Chris Rock said when he hosted Saturday Night Live, it's sad that the man died, but every now and then drug dealers get shot.
Said that.
That was his interpretation of it. And that's to say that man was involved in a dangerous game, playing with people's lives, which he was. So, you're going to have people whose degree of feeling sympathy The line of when a joke crosses a line is based on your level of empathy for people and where that line is. Because most jokes that are accused of crossing a line, it is because it is alleged to disrespect a certain group. And either that group speaks out or people that are advocates for that group go, hey, you can't make that joke about those kinds of people because those people are still people and how dare you. So, for me, if it's me, I'm going to do what's funny because this line is going to constantly change and fluctuate. So you have to stay true to yourself as a performer. And then you just have to hope that the people who rock with you will continue to rock with you. I do think that there's a degree of evolution you have to have as a performer, in terms of, because what I'm saying in the context of how I'm answering this question now, I'm answering it from a space of the topic and the end game. But if there's a certain word that people go, we don't like that word no more. Well, okay, you can still use that word if you want as a performer, but you're going to close off certain folks to the points you're trying to make. And you have to decide whether or not that's okay for you. So, it's kind of two different things, but yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. One of the things you said that I found, I never really thought about it that way is you're making a point of how dangerous Twitter can be, especially for comedians, right? Because you're putting something up there. There's no context. There's no tone, inflection. You can't hear it in a voice, but you're like, the safe space for comedians is the stage. Like if you're going to tell kind of a joke that you're testing out or that might get an emotional reaction from people, the stage is the best place to do it. Once you get on Twitter, that could be the career ender, or that's when you get the cancel comes in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we're coming close to time, Roy, but I wanted to, one, congratulate you again on your presence throughout the CNN network with If I Got News for You. I think
Appreciate that.
you're doing some incredible work. And it's very much necessary in this space and in this time where, to your point, so many people don't challenge any of the ingredients of what they've been spoon-fed their whole lives, and now they're approaching their baby boomer years realizing that they never challenged or were curious enough about anything that they've been indoctrinated throughout. And I think you do an incredibly good job at pointing to the facts and creating space around humor to enable people to think about the facts instead of their feelings. I think feelings often cloud judgment and convolute a person's perspective because never have they ever just had the gall to think through a situation or circumstance. Let me ask, what do you hope to navigate and or accomplish throughout your journey as a commentator, as a comedian, as an author, as a director, as a producer? What does 2025 have in store for all of your works, and what are you most excited about accomplishing?
For 2025, I'm looking forward to my Hulu special. I'm looking forward to my book, The Man of Many Fathers, which will be out in late 2025. I just got more stories to tell, man. And I don't think that stand up is enough of a prism through which for me to be able to tell them. And so I'm excited to be able to write a couple more TV shows. There's a couple movie ideas that I want to get down the pipe and get out and get done as well. So, the more I can create separate revenue streams for myself to produce those other projects, that's what I'm going to do.
Love it.
Yeah. One of the things I want to kind of give you some flowers for too, as well as I was watching one interview yesterday and you had talked about, one of the reasons why you're in this type of media is you're leaving nuggets for your son. Case you said something, I can't remember exactly what you said, but you said, in case I'm not here, it can help him become a man, right?
Yeah.
Which I kind of appreciate because as many times I feel like, my daughters do not care when I do a radio interview. They do not care when I'm on a podcast but if I'm out of here tomorrow, right, at least they have something to look back on. And I feel like many times when I do speak to the camera or I do something in this world, I am doing it for them, right? Because I'm just like, if I'm gone, at least they'll be able to kind of grow up
Yeah.
spend the rest of their lives. They're 19 and 17. So they're getting to the point where they're almost grown, but they can look back on these things and be like, oh, wow, like dad said that. And, it's something that's still there that he wouldn't be able to tell me now that he's not. And I'm surrounded by women, Roy. So I'm definitely going early. The wife, the 4 dogs, and the 2 daughters, I really don't stand a chance. So I have to start. I feel like Tupac. I got to put as many albums out as I can before I go.
Yeah, indeed, man. But yeah, it's definitely a blessing to be able to have all of these different avenues through which to talk to my son down the road. That's probably the best way to put it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, to wrap up that segment, Mike, did you have any additional questions?
No, I do not. I just want to thank you for coming on the show. This is a first. I would have never guessed we'd have an established comedian coming through to give his thoughts on guns and mental health. But this is the world we live in, and I love it. So I just want to thank you for coming on. I really, really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for the invitation. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much, listeners. Thank you so much, viewers. Mike, you want to close us out?
Yeah, I want to close this out. I just want to thank all of our sponsors. Oh, and Roy, before we go, where's the best way for people to check you out? Obviously, the website, things like that.
My name, just @symbolinfront.com on the backside. However you do it, I'm somewhere. I'm even on LinkedIn. I haven't put a profile picture up yet, but I'm on this shit.
You'll get there. No, thanks again to all the listeners. Thanks again to our platinum sponsors to keep this show going. I really appreciate it. I want to reiterate, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave comments. If you want to get a hold of Walk Talk America, you know that we always respond. So we appreciate all the support. And on that note, thank you, Roy. Thank you, Jay Hood. It's good to see your face. Glad you came through. And better mental wellness to everybody.
Thank you all.